So for the first two quizzes here, I really need you guys to focus on some characteristics of each phylum. This first quiz, we covered 4 phyla. The second one, we covered 2. So know a little characteristic about each phyla. And that's what I kind of wanted you to get from this question number 1. Which phylum consists of acoelomate organisms, the majority of which are parasitic? I think the keyword there would be acoelomate. Another keyword would be parasitic. And that's referring to the flatworms in the phylum Platyhelminths. So the correct answer is B, Platyhelminth. All of the other phyla in here, Brachiopoda, Mollusca, Annelida, these were actually all coelomate organisms. All right, so they're all coelomates. So change up the question a little bit. What if I were to put, like, I don't know, which one of these phyla are coelomate, and I don't know, have bivalves or shells like the mollusks do? Some characteristic about mollusks. Huh? What's that?
Mollusca.
Yeah, mollusca. Yes. Yeah. So just kind of change up the questions for to kind of fit the other answer choices there. So number 1 was about flatworms, the phylum for flatworms. Number 2 is I'm asking about a class within that phylum. So which one of these classes has intermediate hosts? And that one's referring to A, Trematoda. All right. And so I wanted you to know a little characteristic about it only. Let's go ahead and add on to it. Can you identify it by looking at a picture as well of it? Or I'm sorry, like a model of it as well. So this would be Trematoda here. All right. This is the liver fluke one. So I may have this out and ask you for the class. I really want to focus on just knowing phylum and class for all of these. Okay. The other classes, you should just be able to recognize what they look at like, and then we'll have like structures that go along with them. Number 3, which phylum contains coelomate organisms? So all 3 of these, A, C, and D, could be in that category, but the ones with closed circulatory systems and segmentation. Right? One of the mollusks, I believe the squid, the cephalopods, have a closed circulatory system, I think. But the segmentation, that's going to be like the really big keyword for the annelids. So that's going to include earthworms, bristleworms, leeches, right? And then number 4 was a question about one of the annelid classes, the class Polychaeta. Those are the bristleworms. So poly meaning many, chaeta referring to hairs, so the many-haired worms. And so that gets rid of D right away. C, it doesn't feed on blood. That would be the leech, right? B would be parasitic. B, parasitic. None of these, that's kind of more of a characteristic of flatworms. The answer is A, vital to the marine food web. So this is going to be the food staple for a lot of marine life. Okay, let's look at number 5. Name the class in structure. So the class would be Turbellaria. And because, remember, it has that little tube in it. All right, so Turbellaria, because of the tube. This was going to be the pharynx, right? There's 2 more other, structures that I need you to know, though, too. These right here. What are these called? Eye spots, and then these little pointy ends. The ears. Auricles. Okay. Now let's check out number 6. Class, again. That's class Cestoidea, or I'll take Cestoda. And the structure for that, I'll probably use a slide. Or I like because I like the slide, but we could actually use this board model too. This has, the whole structure is considered a Stolex, right? This has hooks and suckers on it here. This bottom one only has suckers on it. Can you guys all see that? So that's the Stolex, but then I really like this board model for the Troglodid though. So Troglodid also has inner structures too. What are the red structures called? Reproductive? Yeah, the ovaries. And then the blue ones are the testes here. All right. So that's kind of a big one to know for the tapeworm. All right. What else? Turn the page. And we've got name that phylum. That's the Brachiopoda. That's the intermediate group, kind of half clam, half worm. And just know that one structure there for it, the pedicle. It's going to be hard to identify and put a pin in the setae on that. So just know the pedicle for that. So we're kind of going through the phyla, all right? And that's the way it'll be on the exam too. It should be in order, you know. Each exercise is in order, and then even within that exercise, it's in order. So this is just stuff that you'll pick up once you start, you know, taking more and more tests by your fourth year. After you're almost out of college, then you'll finally kind of know how to take tests and stuff. So, number 8, that phylum, Mollusca. What's the class? No, 2. You should know the class as well. Class Bivalvia. So write that down. Make sure you know the class Bivalvia too. And I want you to identify the gills. That was one structure. And then what was the other one?
The foot.
The foot. So gills and foot for that one. So we'll have like a clam dissection out for you to look at for there. Okay. Number 8. These are mollusca classes here, right off the bat. The first one's cephalopoda, head foot, right? And then the next one's gastropoda, stomach foot. Okay. Go ahead and on the side, I want you to write down 2 of the pitfalls with these. With the cephalopoda, that also includes squids and nautilus. All right? So this is what a nautilus looks like. I want you to write on the side to not confuse, like don't confuse nautilus with gastropods, right, with a snail. So don't get nautilus confused with a snail. All right? And then I'll let you write that down.
Don't confuse with what?
Don't get nautilus confused with snail.
Okay.
So don't get this cephalopod confused with the gastropods. Right? This has a squid kind of creature in it. It sports along. So it's class cephalopoda. And then for the gastropods, you know, it also includes slugs too. So don't get the slugs confused with the leeches. So don't get the class gastropoda confused with the class. Hiradinia. Okay, Hiradinia in the phylum Annelida. So those are just some helpful hints. The way you can tell the slugs apart from the leeches is the leeches are going to have segmentations in them. They're going to have little lines in them, little bands around them. Okay.
Can you
Yeah.
repeat what not to confuse that one with?
Don't get slugs confused with leeches.
Okay.
So don't get gastropods confused with Hiradinia. Okay, the last question here was about annelids. So phylum Annelida, that's an earthworm. Right away, you should kind of tell, okay, that's a worm. Not only is it a worm, it's not flat, right? So it's not platyhelminth. And then look at the bands on it, right? That's a dead giveaway for that whole phylum. And then know the clitellum. Let's also add on to that, just in case there's a slide. So that sets priority, all right? This will be like second priority, okay? Let's add figure 8-21. 8-21, dorsal blood vessel and coelom. 8-21, dorsal blood vessel and coelom. Just in case there's a slide of it on there. So that's kind of, second, third priority, all right? And coelom. Yeah, those two, yeah. Okay. And then what's the bonus there? What is it, deuterostome versus protostome stuff? That's going to be a really good one to know, all right? That's a first priority thing. You guys make sure you know the deuterostome versus the protostome. Look for the keywords, right? Deutero would be what? Coelom occurs from outpocketing, right? And blastophore turns into the anus. Protostome, blastophore turns into the mouth, and the coelom forms through splitting. Okay, just highlight those keywords. Make a note card, highlight the keywords on there. Okay, next quiz. Quiz 7 should have the C star on the front. Okay. Which of the following is a characteristic of the phylum Echinodermata? So this exercise we actually covered two phylums, Echinodermata and Chordata. So you could replace Echinodermata with Chordata. This one's about the echines, so I put every characteristic about the notochords except for one, spiny skin there. So the correct answer is B, spiny skin. But notice, notochord, pharyngeal gill slits, those all belong to Chordata phylum. Number 2, which of the following organisms' eggs are not amniotic? So this is a good point and a good time for me to remind you guys to just read fully through your questions, Don't just read the first half of it and then think, oh, I got this, Write it down right away, and you're waiting the whole time to go to the next, part of the exam, and just don't make silly mistakes like that. With this question here, I could actually have a specimen out for you, too. Like, could have a bird out for you, or like a dissected frog or something. And just think, okay, which one of these has a shell, right? I think to yourself, okay, I know amniotic organisms have shells. So frog eggs, do they have shells? No. So those are non-amniotic. Turtle eggs have shells. Snake eggs have shells. Bird eggs have shells, all right? These are all amniotes there. Not that a shell is the amniotic part of it. Really, it's referring to the amniotic sac, or the amniotic fluid within the shell, too. Okay. Number 3 and 4 are part of 4. It's all about the C star, okay? So this is a big portion of it. You should make, 2 to 3 note cards out of this. So I need to know phylum, perhaps class, too. If you guys want to add on to this, make sure you know the class of this one as well. Phylum Echinodermata, class Asteroidea, so it looks like a star. Aster, Latin for star, asteroid, right? So phylum, class, structures. Let's look at external structures, like here in question 3 is part A. That's the madreporite. That's an external structure. What if I were to flip it over upside down and have like a pin right in the middle? What structure would that be? The mouth, yes, yeah. Okay, and then the internal structures, that's on the first, oh yeah, question, what's up? The class Asteroidea. And then, so know the taxonomy on this one, phylum and class. External structures, madreporite and mouth. Internal structures brings us to the first part of number 4 here. The one showing here is digestive gland, and this is kind of a weird sea star because there's only 4 arms on it. And then it's kind of, I know this was a difficult picture too because it's really hard to tell that the skin's removed there. So maybe, on the question it might read, identify the structural layer with the yellow pin, something like that. So that's the digestive gland up there. What would be the next layer underneath that?
The
Gonads. Okay. Reproductive portion. All right. The second half of number 4, that is a sea urchin, and I am asking which class that belongs to. That's Echinoidea, so that's supraspiny. All right. Echino means spiny. This whole class is named after the spiny ones. Also, sand dollars are within here. And then you should also know the other 2 classes. Brittle stars belong to Ophiroidea, and then sea cucumbers belong to Holothuroidea. Okay. All right, that's going to be it for that phylum. And then the last phylum is the one that includes everything else, right? Phylum Chordata. So number 5, I'm asking you identify the phylum of this one. Just phylum though, okay? So read the questions carefully because it could ask you the subphylum of this as well. So the phylum here is Chordata, and identifying the structures here, would you please, okay, A is the notochord. Could you please add pharyngeal gill slits to the side view here in figure 3? So pharyngeal gill slits, it's actually it's answer D on number 1 if you want to know the spelling. Pharyngeal gill slits. And then on that picture on the right is notochord, and then also add pharynx. So you should know pharynx there as well. Know the subphylum as well too. That'll be a kind of a trickier kind of question. Subphylum Cephalochordata. Yeah. Where is it cephalo? Cephalo. Okay. All right, turn the page on the back side. 6, 7, and 8 kind of all go together. 6, this class is Chondrichthyes. You guys did really good on spelling this one. It was like you knew it, and you knew how to spell it, or you just didn't know it at all. So I was really surprised there. That was good. Make sure you can identify this class. And when I ask for what type of skeleton it has, I'm referring to cartilaginous, or cartilage. Which, if you guys know, that type of vitamin, glucosamine chondroitin, that's for cartilage and joints. And so the name chondroitin kind of goes into chondrichthyes, sort of. Maybe that'll help you kind of remember it. Also, if I were to have the little dogfish shark out, could you tell me where the fins are on it, too? And that's why 6, 7, and 8 kind of go together. Because 7, immediately when you look at 7, you should note that, okay, well, this fish has ray fins on it. So this one's going to have a bony skeleton, and this is going to be the hardest taxonomical name for y'all to remember. It's Actinopterygii, and that will be like the apex of your taxonomy knowledge there, okay? And then number 8, identify the dorsal fin and the caudal fin. You should be able to do that on both a ray fin fish and a cartilaginous fish, and then be able to identify their classes as well. Okay. Yeah, what's up?
What was number 7 again?
7, the class is Actinopterygii, Actinopter. Sounds like I'm just making up letters, but it's really how it's spelled. YGII. That's like, that's the toughest one, saving it for last, and kind of the cream of the crop there, though. I'd like you guys to know. But keep in mind, this is it. This is kind of, on one side, I did really break it down for you. All right, you're welcome. On the other side, I want you to note that this is, what you should focus on the most, first priority. Okay. If you get this down, yeah, feel free to go ahead and look at some other stuff. I'm not going to put a bunch of trick questions on there, but make sure that you do focus on this first, and don't go crazy out of town and start just reading the lab manual from halfway through. Do you get what I'm saying? Right? So don't overkill it. Right? Number 9. I want to say that I need you to have amphibia, not amphibian, and also have reptilia and not reptilian. All right? Number 10, for the feather anatomy, just know rachis and barbs. We have a really good slide of this too. I'm not sure if you remember. If you were taking pictures, go back to this one. And then the dermal skins, the skin layer here. So we had subcutaneous at the bottom, dermis in the middle, and then epidermis. And there was also some other structures too. Hair follicle, sebaceous gland, which was right next to the hair follicle, and then sweat gland, which was kind of a little squiggly line right off of it. And we'll use the model for that and put stickers all over it for you. Okay. Bonus number 1. Name one jawless fish. This would be hagfish or lamprey. And then number 2, which brings us to the nervous system, is, yes, you should know the basic unit of the nervous system. Right? So in addition to knowing what a neuron is, or the definition of a neuron, make sure you know the definition of the CNS. And what it's comprised of. So question number 1, what does the CNS consist of? The brain and the spinal cord. Number 2, this one was asking which receptors are associated with taste and smell. That's chemoreceptors. But what if I were to ask you which receptors are associated with light, or sight, excuse me. That would be light receptors. Or touch. That would be mechanoreceptors. And in addition to that, if you would just write next to proprioceptor that this is a type of mechanoreceptor used in the field sobriety test. Right, yeah. Number 2, answer D. Just write on the side of there that a proprioceptor is a type of mechanoreceptor used in the field sobriety test. So it has to do with hand-eye coordination. So proprioceptor, type of mechanoreceptor used in the field sobriety test.
Of what kind of test?
Field sobriety. So when police are out in the field, they can use that to see if you're drunk or not.
Thank you.
Did anybody see the Reno 911 field sobriety test where the guy does like a little dance? Well, it goes from touching the nose to like doing the 2-step to like doing like a whole dance routine. And then she's like, "Wow, you're pretty good." And he goes, "Well, I'm drunk." So he was like, "Oh, you got me." And then put the cuffs on. You gotta check it out. Okay. Number 3. This is a question about peristalsis. So know the definition of peristalsis. Really straightforward. Number 4. What type of enzyme is used to digest proteins? That would be protease. So proteins, protease. Maybe changed proteins to fats. All right. That would be lipase. Or carbs. That would be amylase. Make sure, let's add something to this. Make sure you know about salivary amylase. Oh, and I'm remembering something else too. So I'll write that down, salivary amylase. Also on the side, if you would note taste bud cells. And so make sure you know the taste bud cells, like receptor cells and support cells, I believe. And then with smell, it's called nasal epithelium, but just so you can, or it's called olfactory epithelium, but you can just put like nasal cavity cells, all right? And that was hair, receptor, and support. Yeah. So just on the side somewhere here, make sure you know the cells in the taste bud. There's 2 of them, and then the cells in the nasal cavity. There's 3 of them there. But when you look back at your handout, I talk about olfactory epithelium. So go over your quizzes, and then go back to the handouts, right? And then go to the manual. But I would say, just while I'm thinking about it, make some note cards out of the questions that you missed, on the quizzes. Okay, let's move on to number 5. Identify the structures on the neuron. So, do you remember the model, the neuron model that we had out? It actually doesn't have the axon terminals on there, so you don't have to worry about that. But you will have to know the axon, all right? So our model that we have has the axon, the cell body, and the dendrites visible on it. Okay, so for number 5, you should know dendrites, which was A, and then the cell body, and then the axon. And you don't have to worry about axon terminals. Okay? Okay, for number 6, we will have a sheep's brain out as well as a model of the brain. So, like a model like this. And I'll probably put the more difficult, structures to know on the model, and then perhaps the easier ones on the actual sheep brain dissection. So, and remember on your handout you have a list of them in order from kind of difficulty. The first one I would know on the sheep brain would be the cerebral hemisphere, or cerebral cortex would be even better if you could remember to put that down. But I'll take both, cerebral hemisphere, cerebral cortex. And that one is pretty easy to know, as well as cerebellum. That's going to be a good one. You guys should all get that one, cerebellum. All of the other structures labeled on this quiz, this figure for the brain, don't worry about those. Those aren't important. Those are too hard, and some of them are just not really pointing very well. Cerebral hemisphere, cerebellum, spinal cord. That would be a really easy one to know too. And then the next one I'd like y'all to know is corpus callosum, and that was 6A. Corpus callosum. And that one you can actually see pretty good on the sheep's brain dissection too. So that's that kind of earlobe, white structure right in the middle of the brain. On the model, for sure, we'll have pons and medulla oblongata. And you can think of those, like, call this whole part the brain stem. And then just think about it going from along the brain stem, it goes pons, medulla oblongata, and then spinal cord. Okay. Alrighty. Yeah, this was a pretty tough one because we had the 2 exercises, so I'm adding lots of stuff. For number 7, the first portion there was the reflex arc. 5 components, okay? So I can have a sticker on any of these 5 components. And this picture is really good because it looks exactly like the model we had. The first component would be the sensory receptor, receiving the message there. And then it goes along that neuron, the yellow neuron. That's the sensory neuron. And each of the neurons are going to have a color and a different color, and they're also going to have this like little tab on them with a number, but I'll probably put my sticker on that little tab on each of them. So the first one's yellow, the second component is the yellow neuron, the sensory neuron. It goes to that sea green neuron within the spinal cord, or within the vertebrate, and that's the inner neuron. That's the one I wanted you guys to know on this quiz. So that's the correct answer here. And then the orange neuron is the motor neuron. And then you've got the motor, or the effector muscle. Or just the effector is the 5th component. So know your 5 components. The next portion here, the reflex hammer. Make sure you also know what it's used to test for. Okay, it's used to test for the knee-jerk reflex. So you can add that to it here. Okay, number 8, probably a better way to ask for the esophagus would be maybe identify the structure. So make sure you know these within the human torso model. And the stomach, make sure you can kind of identify it outside of the human torso model too. And don't get it confused with the other organs when they're all laid out. So don't get the stomach confused with the liver. And know the stage that these are involved in too. So esophagus is involved in the first stage, ingestion, and then the stomach is involved in the second stage, digestion. So maybe on the side of 8, make sure you know the stages. Another organ would be this, like the small intestine, but you guys always get that one really good. Number 9, identify the organ and know the function. This is the liver. It's used to produce bile. In addition to that, know the gallbladder is used to store bile. And I may refer to the gallbladder as a structure too. And so on number 9, go ahead and add gallbladder stores bile. And make sure you know the small intestine. 2. Number 10, that's the large intestine, and that's in the last stage, the elimination stage. And add cecum to number 10. So make sure you know where the cecum is. Like I may ask you, what connects the small intestine to the large intestine? And that would be the cecum. I'll give you guys a second to catch up. Rest your hand here. Bonus number 1. The chemical messengers are going to be neurotransmitters. You should also know the definition of the term synapse. That's the gap. So 1, neurotransmitters, also know synapse. Number 2, that's myopia. You should also know hyperopia. You guys are getting it, right? Number 3 is really straightforward. The pyloric sphincter. So you should kind of know that in relation to the cecum as well. These are the connecting kind of joints here. Number 4, insulin and glucagon. And number 5, circulatory. Not the heart. What do they? I had one student say the love thing or something. I don't even know what that means. Are you guys good on figuring out the last one? Yeah. I would just say for number 7, that's going to be brachial and radial, and then the crop cough sounds. Right? And just know that artery or that blood vessel slide, and instead of my figure here, you'll have to know that list of structures for the heart on the model. As well as the pig heart dissection is up for grabs too. Okay, good luck, and email me, and then just make sure you do your note cards. Email me if you have any other questions. Oh, you guys can also feel free to go into another, TA's lab and sit through their review too, or to come look at the stuff again during the week, all right? Okay. You don't need your lab coats anymore.